was his first choice, maybe because his son's father-in-law is living here, but he also had memories as a child, down in Lake Chautauqua, but also knew people in the community and knew what a loyal, hard-working, and very supportive community it was. So he said, it was a Friday night, and he said, why don't you get Bill Giesel, who was our corporate attorney, on the phone, and he says, there's a lawyer from Jamestown who's always, he says, I remember seeing, I think he must be a photographer too. And I didn't want to say, well, he wasn't really, he takes pictures. And the only reason he had press passes during our most prominent events, including the opening of the stadium in '88 and the Old Timers game, where every photographer and reporter is told, just take the pictures and don't ask for autographs, is this fellow with a camera, video camera, still camera, and a bag, who would always go up to Joe DiMaggio or the players that were there, take the picture, sit down next to them, have a photo taken, and then say, we have an auction every year in Jamestown, New York, and it goes for a great cause. Would you mind autographing a few of these balls? And I have this photo here, and this one is for a pal of mine, and so, we sort of washed our hands of that and let them get away with it. But we called Greg and we said there's a deal going on here that Jamestown is going to lose its team tonight to Vermont, that Montreal wants the team out of here. We're coming off 5 straight not very good financial years in Niagara Falls, and looking at these financials that Montreal put together, which were the most incredibly, they're very interesting to read. Whether they're in French or English, but they didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I said we can do it literally a flop of teams, but it's here or another place. I think it was Glens Falls that we were going to move to, or then sell it to someone who was down there. So Greg put the proper people together, and we came down, and Sam was quite instrumental with the mayor, and he wasn't the mayor back then, but the administration, and I think the mayor was running for office then, and it was quite an interesting experience. And we came here, and I was splitting time between Buffalo and here to get it up and going, and it was such a neat place to come down to, because this is really old town baseball, where people would just gather in a very relaxed setting and watch a baseball game. And Sam, do you know someone here? How come you're the only one with what? I'm carrying on, hoping she's got the rest of this. So
keep talking.
It's unbelievable.
They have a long list, so.
The only Italian in town.
They want to keep open.
The only Italian in town, and she takes good care of it.
That's why.
But it was a great experience. It was tough convincing people from Buffalo of this great little gem down here in Chautauqua County, and but once they came down, they really enjoyed it. I had some great memories of those first couple years of putting the operation together. Russ, and I certainly wish Russ was here, was very instrumental in just in his sort of quiet way of opening some doors to people and making them understand that this is, it's fun and games, and it's recreation and entertainment and all that, but it's a business, and it's a new business in town, and like any one of you that are retired businessmen or current businessmen, you operate a business on the bottom line. If you don't show a return on the investment, you have to make some changes, and that's we continue to work at that from day one, and then now there's a great staff in place, and I'm no longer involved with the organization, but probably one of the as I look back on this operation, one of the moves that I feel most grateful about was sitting in the stands and it was the last game of the season, and I'm sitting next to Greg, and wandered, it was fairly quiet, and the team was rallying to come back, but running through the stands, I mean, I think it was extra inning, and the score was tied, is this wild man trying to rile the crowd up and wearing a jacket with a radio station logo on it. And he's carrying a towel and doing everything to get the crowd going. And lo and behold, the crowd sort of woke up a little bit and got going, and the team started rallying. And I asked, Greg, who that was. And he said, that's Mike Ferguson. He's a morning guy on the radio station. He gave me the station and, tried to stop Mike saying, geez, you're doing a great job. And at that point, I said to Greg, there's the type of person that we need to, to lead, this team here. And, then I told our advisor and confidant, a man who got me involved in donuts at the donut shop over here. And he said, oh, Mike Ferguson, he's the guy. You've got to talk to him. And I listened to him the next morning, and we won that game, I think. Well, for story's sake, we won it. I think Greg had it on video. But listened to him the next morning on radio, it sounded great, and talked to him and found out that Mike has a deep hidden desire to get involved in working in sports, and baseball especially. So there's that certain craziness that affects people if they either want to own it or they want to work in it. And that was his desire, to get involved in it. He's a former national racquetball tour player and star, a few years and a few pounds ago. That was his, but he always wanted to get involved in baseball. And I said, there's got to be a way we can do that. And so we were able to finagle some structure around when Sean was still here. But I had in the back of my eye, I knew that Mike was going to be the guy to lead this program, because at this level, you need someone who's going to have the passion for the community and the business acumen and the passion for the sport to really make it work. Because it is a business unlike any other I've ever seen. You really have to, for me, it drove me, almost in the ground, literally. If it hadn't been that it was just the seasons go from April to September, for a AAA team here, it's June to September, but you put so much time and effort into it. I mean, you're literally talking 15, 16-hour days at some points. When we opened up the stadium, we're at the height of the major league, and we're entertaining. I literally would, as I think back on it, of how nuts it really was. I would have my pad, and I remember games where I'd have 2 or 3 sheets. Well, maybe not that many, but a couple of sheets filled with sections and who the people were. And by the end of the game, I'd have to see each of these people and sit with them. Oh yeah, I'll meet you afterwards in the restaurant. Oh, I'll meet you up here. And you're going and you're still running the actual business. It just became so overwhelming. But you have to have a certain type of person like that, and that's what Mike is here, and he's got some great assistants, that have been with him and are working with him now that understand that amount of time. And that's really what you need to keep this going, because you don't have the expense, the advertising expense to be in the newspaper and say, it isn't like putting an ad in the paper and saying, we have widgets for sale and they'll be on sale this week. It's, you're selling entertainment, you're selling a sport, you're selling community support. And these franchises now of what we picked up for $10,000, I think was the expansion fee 9 years ago in the New York Penn League. The team, and it has expanded from the New York, Pennsylvania margins It's now up in Canada, and it's in, I think, probably half a dozen states. But I remember in a meeting where they moved from Elmira because they couldn't get any support there. And the owner, showed his book. Look, I've been losing all this money. Elmira, this place is closed, and that place is closed. And I need to move out of Elmira. And he then moved to Lowell, Massachusetts. So like Lowell, Massachusetts. And they got permission. It was one of these convoluted deals that they had to get permission from the Red Sox. They then traded parent clubs so that they became then the single-A team for the Boston Red Sox. And now the team was just sold to a good friend of mine for $2 million. So the franchises certainly have a value, and they're building them a new stadium, in that Lowell area there. So it just shows me how the game just continues to go. You read about some of the problems in there, but the game just continues to grow and grow. I'm just hoping, now as I've been out of it just a couple of months, even though I was out of it last year, but I don't count that because I had a relapse of, after my accident, and as I now am able to slow down and look back, I'm like, wow, the Lord certainly must have something for me to do in this life, because there's really no way I should even be here. I could still be living, but there's no way I should be able to stand and get around like anyone else. As I look back at that accident, you had a drunken Canadian, nothing against Canadians, but he was going 60 miles an hour down the road, and I'm just riding a bicycle. And I consider it a true miracle, because 4 days earlier, our baseball season ended, and unfortunately it ended short, too short. We lost in the playoffs, as usual, for a Buffalo sports team. Hopefully that trend will change with the hockey team. The voice came over me as I was driving up to Canada that my bike helmet was at my Buffalo house. And I could have argued that voice the whole way up to Canada. But I drove to my house and looking all around, and sure enough, in this box by the door is my helmet. So I don't think anything of it. Throw it in the car, drive up to Canada, and 4 days later, take off for my morning ride and put the helmet on as usual. And as statistics have it, literally 1 mile from my house, or just under 1 mile, this car whacks me from behind, throws me into his windshield, and at that time of the year, mid-September, everyone's gone from their cottages, so no one is usually on these roads. Well, there's a car sitting at the intersection, and a retired gentleman who looks both ways, and he doesn't like what he sees, so he says, I think I'll watch this. Sees the accident. Now, rather than the guy stopping and just, saying, okay, I hit you, he just hit the gas, threw me down the road, and I went bouncing into a metal Buffalo News box. This guy takes off and drives over my left ankle, and I don't find that out until the following year. I'm going through the ballpark, and some guy says, dude, aren't you well? I said, yeah. He said, boy, we had your ankle, the x-ray of your ankle hanging up in our room. He said, it was one of the few we ever saw with tire tracks right in it. Oh, nice to hear. And the guy at the intersection, turns out he has a cellular phone. Well, we never thought you'd get here. A cellular phone, and he was able to call information and get them there, an ambulance there, like within 20 minutes. And all this goes back to the hospital. We get to ECMC, and they said if there was like a 20-minute lag time either way, I certainly wouldn't have made it through, and the helmet certainly saved my life. So when I got out of the hospital, though, the doctor gave me this long list of things to do, and one of them was, slow down, take things a little easier, you can't go back to the pace you were going before. And it was like the minute I got out of that, and he said you should take another 5-6 months and just take them off and just rest. And it was as if I was going to say, yeah, I'll show you. And I just came out of the hospital flying, and it caught up to me. And he said, if you don't do this, you'll be back to see me at some point. And it was a couple of years later, in last February, I just had a relapse, and, you know, the consequences of what he told me of what could happen were enough that finally got my attention. So I took some time off, and it was last June, I was feeling better, and I knew I'd be ready to come back to work relatively soon. But I was carrying the Olympic torch in where I grew up in Kenmore, New York, and a voice came over me that said, you know, the same voice that said, your bike helmet is in your house. And the voice said, give something back to your tree and do something for kids. So it was at that point I knew I was going to take a break from baseball, and I sort of didn't feel good going back where everyone had been working so long and so hard, and me just coming back, you know, onto the scene. And that's when I went to the Riches and said, you know, I think I want to do something else, and I'm going to leave and get into do something for kids and give something back to the community. And that's when they reminded me that I'm on the board of an agency we founded 10 years ago, Western New York United Against Drug and Alcohol Abuse. And they said, why don't you take a look at that? So I did that last July, and decided that I could, you know, maybe help that out a little bit. But I have taken the doctor's advice, and I'm not going into it with a Mother Teresa mentality that I'm going to certainly change the problem with drugs in this world and with our youth. But we do have programs that are making a little bit of a difference, and you know, I'm going to try and see what I can do there. I was in the same office of a young man who was running a pretty fast life until he got there and started working there. He then slowed down a little bit, found a young lady, and got married, and recently had their firstborn. And that's our board member's son-in-law, Bob Rich III. So maybe I could follow in his footsteps in the same office.
Yeah.